Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi. This is episode 40 of the podcast. That's right, can't believe we made it this far already. But we have a special guest today, and we're actually going to be taking a step back from some nuts and bolts content like we normally do here, and take time to get to know Kasendrith personally. That's right, Kasendrith is one of the biggest content creators and streamers of the Eternal community. He is quickly growing in ranks of popularity for his selflessness and constant encouragement of this fantastic community of ours. And I was lucky enough to get some time out of his busy schedule to get him on the show so you guys can get to know him a little bit better. We are going to still talk about the draft format. Don't worry, this limited aficionado will still give us our little snippets of information that he has. But overall, I just want to get the full spectrum picture of him. So without further ado, let me welcome on the show Kasendrith. What is up, buddy?
Hey, really happy to be here, Jedi.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I feel like I keep asking so much of you and you just continuously deliver without batting an eyelash. I really can't thank you enough.
That's really just something I like to do in terms of everybody that streams Eternal. I love supporting this community. I love supporting this game. It's just a fantastic and welcoming community, and I want to be a part of it.
And you really much are. Like, for those of you that don't know already, you should, but Kasendrith is part of my Content Creator Showdown, which is a program I'm trying to do to kind of cross-pollinate the followers and viewership and community of Eternal, and just introduce them to different content creators, introduce them to different variants of the game, and just also create a extremely produced or post-production type content where people that might not be into Eternal can look, see that there's professionalism, catch their eye, and get them into this game, get them in, foot in the door on this game. And once again, even knowing very little about me, Kasendrith was all up in arms to help me make this happen. And he's absolutely amazing. Not only just a great guy, but also tactically and strategically sound in the game, which is always a great combination to have because he's great to watch on stream and you're also going to learn something out of it. But before we go into that, let's do a little bit of quick housekeeping. Just want to go ahead and mention the YouTube channel. That's right, EJthePodcast or Eternal Journey on your YouTube search engine will lead you to my channel where you get to find the Content Creator Showdown that we just talked about, as well as all various offline, even though they're still online content, to include draft videos, sealed videos, tournament reports now that we're starting the new ECQ season, as well as every special event that Direwolf decides to release on Eternal. I try to do it nice and early, post a video on there for you guys so you can figure out whether you want to participate or not. Definitely check that out. Once again, EJthePodcast or Eternal Journey. And of course, the new project that I have going on that is slowly but surely picking up steam. We have cube drafting every Sunday on my stream live. For those of you that are not aware of that, it is essentially drafting 5 curated packs of a format that I generated using Eternal's card game. And the reason why it's 5 packs is because we are still unable to challenge each other with 45 card decks. And so I accommodated adding an additional pack so we have enough playables for a 75 card deck. And we just kind of battle it out. And typically I throw out the rarity restriction, but this week we actually started a throwback type draft where I was trying to experiment with, where we actually drafted set 1. That's right, the very first set of Eternal. We brought it up on screen and everyone drafted and had a great time kind of reliving it for some people and the nostalgia and experiencing an older format they never had a chance to from some other people. So it's a lot of fun. If you are a little intimidated about giving a shot, you could definitely just tune in and spectate. It's a lot of fun. We chat up about picks as well as strategy and stuff like that. So definitely check that out every Sunday at Jedi EJ on twitch.tv. And finally, our shout out section. That's right. I want to give a shout out to some of the people that support the community, especially the Jedi Order. We have Yistout gifting 5 subs this week. That's right. So not only was Yistout kind enough to resub for the 5th month in a row, but they were also generous enough to donate 5 different subs to the channel to fellow new Padawans to the Order. So really appreciate that, Yistout. You are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that. It is kindness like that lets us know that we are on the right track. You're enjoying the content we create, and so we will continue to do so for you. and of course a fellow content creator in the form of Sunny Vale, also on the Content Creator Showdown, creating both stuff for Eternal and Magic in the form of the Brawl project as well as various budget decks. He decided to raid me today, as a matter of fact, for 692 follower viewers strong for the Cube Draft today. So thank you so much, Sunny. Definitely throw him a follow. Check out his stream and his content. He is absolutely fantastic. A great brewer, spitting out decks almost every other day. That's not something easy to do. But that's all I got. Kasendrith, do you have anyone you want to give a quick shout out to while we're here?
I would say there's several newer eyes that are coming into the Eternal community. I know one of the new ones that's been rising pretty quickly is Billy Pistol. I think people should definitely give her a shout out and give her a follow if you can. I love seeing more diversity in our streaming community outside of just guys in general. So like Sursa Sparkles is another one of them that comes in, Kalos, but like seeing new people to the community is fantastic, and I love supporting that.
Yeah, very good call. I actually just tuned into her stream thanks to your tweet about her the other day. I went in there and gave her a follow, and she showed up, I think, for the Cube Draft last week. I don't remember. It might have been my Monday night draft stream. But yeah, definitely, once again, Billy Pistol, is it 64?
I believe so.
If not, we'll catch it. We'll catch it in the show notes for you guys to throw a follow her way. But definitely support new content creators, because it's very intimidating and quite the obstacle to do when you first start. No one really likes streaming for chairs, but sometimes you kind of have to. So definitely, if you have some time, can go in there and show some support, then hey, it definitely helps the community out as a whole. Okay, so this leads us to our pack one, pick one. That's right. This is how we start off most shows, going down through a draft of the current format. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm doing my cube ones, but maybe I'll do a special one, have you on the show with maybe Ben Gracier or something, and do a special edition on cube drafting. But this one, we're going to crack open a pack of Flame of Xulta. So, Kasendrith, are you ready?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So I actually think you like to go off the beaten path a little bit because of your skill set. You're able to be a little more flexible. So I'm actually going to go down every card instead of kind of skipping the ones that I probably would skip over. And, if it is something you don't look at, then we'll move on. But if there's something you want to say about it, then we totally will. But we're pretty much going to just try to figure out what you would take, pack one, pick one, at the top 8, top 8 of a ECQ limited tournament. All right, so
top 8 ECQ, we got competitive mindset. Let's go and see what we got.
All right, so first up we have Vine Petal Creeper. This is the 4/4 Mandrake for 5 and a time, and has muster +4/+4 and endurance this turn.
I think the card's reasonable. I don't think it's a fantastic card. I think it's being a muster card, I think it's probably one of the ones that usually gets cut. Usually when I'm looking for a muster card, I look for something like a Green Stretch Empath. Or the 4-cost double primal Yeti that musters as well. Those are the two that I really focus on if I look for like a muster payoff card. So this guy I usually write off as a little bit less desirable in the muster deck.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's competing with some cards at the 5 slot and time. So it's definitely not something you're super excited. I will say this, but the last time I tried to go deep into muster, I ended up with 5 of the Wanderlust Kirans. So, yeah, no one was apparently picking on that draft. All right, moving on. Next up, we have Makar's Blood Wolf. This is the 2/3 wolf, that 3 in a shadow. It has lifesteal and then mastery 6. Give it a +2/+2. Where are you at on this guy?
I think this is just a fantastic role player / filler card. I think he fills a pretty good slot. 2/3 is a good stat line in this format, considering you have Evangels and you have a lot of the other units that are 2/3s. Anytime that this card is in play, it does a great job gumming up the ground. So I think he fits the 3-drop slot very well.
Okay. Well, we have Stand Strong, which I'm pretty sure that's just not playable, right?
I would say Stand Strong's not phenomenal, but there are some areas where it's very good. The areas that it's very good is in the Oni deck when you're looking for a effective way to deal damage to their face. If you find a unit that you just want to push a little extra damage or trigger mastery, you can do a really good job with that. The other spot where this card is really good is on killer units. If you can combine this with a killer unit, you can do some really dangerous things, like an Omnivorous Vorlunk or something along those lines. This is not a card I actively seek, but if I already have killer effects, then I will have no problem putting one in the deck.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. You just got to make sure that the killer effect kills it, in response, so you get the Exalted trigger. Yeah.
Vorlon does a really good job of that because he has that 1 health.
True. Plus Overwhelm, so you're going to be potentially get some face damage in there as well. All right, so here's one of the top 2 drops of the format here, and this is Spiketail Kieran. This is the 2/2 Kieran for 2 and a time, and it pays 6 to give Spiketail Kieran a +4/+4 this turn, and then Mastery 6 give your units get a +1/+1. So I think I've already talked enough about the mastery on this guy. Most listeners already understand the way it works as far as it hits everything that's in play, but it doesn't, should you leave play, the other guys still keep it, and anything that follows after will not get the +1/+1. Where are you at on Spiketail?
So Spiketail Kieran is a fantastic example of limited card evaluation. This card is good at the 2-drop slot, it's good at the 5-drop slot, and it's good at every turn after 5 because he has a relevant effect of the pay 6 to give him +4/+4. So anytime you have this card, you can threaten a lot of damage. And he also has that payoff of getting Mastery 6 of that buff to your board. So this is just a really, really strong and good card that can affect multiple stages of the game. And that's the kind of like the premium limited card you look for.
Nice. Yeah, well said. Okay, we have another 2-drop in the form of Zoltan Paladin. This is a 3/2 Paladin for 2 and a green. That's it. Just a vanilla 3/2 for 2. So obviously, it won't take down Spiketail Kieran, but if you want to say a couple of words on it, I'm more than happy to appeal.
Yeah, of course. If I was in a pool where I saw Spiketail and Xulta Paladin in the same pack, and this is like a pick one situation, I wouldn't really be looking at the Xulta Paladin. Just in the sense that Spiketail Kieran just does a better job. And now, if I'm already in Justice, I love Xulta Paladin. A 3 damage is a lot. You remember how I said that 2/3 is a good stat line? Well, the opposite is also true because a 3/2 could trade with those 2/3s, which makes it very reasonable.
Yeah, very much so. It definitely helps you trade up for sure. All right, next up we have another 1/2/5 drop here in the form of Nahid's Faithful. This is a 2/1 cultist for 1-time Shadow, so Xenon. It has Lifesteal, and then Summon. You may sacrifice another unit to give Nahid's Faithful +2/+2. So I actually have come up a little bit higher on this card just because prior to I didn't realize how accommodating Xenon is to having extra fodder, or even if you're able to splash fire as well. So this card is actually a little bit easier to accommodate the 4/3 lifesteal, which is kind of a build your own Hojin than I initially expected.
So this kind of is going to bleed into something where I was going to talk about that we were going to kind of mention later is archetypes. The sacrifice deck. So either Xenon or I forget the actual name for the 3 faction, but Shadow, Fire, Time. I absolutely love that deck in Eternal. If you can get that in the limited sense, it's extremely fun, and it has a lot of really cool synergistic cards that may not be good in their own bubble. Nahid's Faithful is one of those cards that's both good by itself and good with those sacrifice outlets. So like if you get the 0/4 Totemite that you can sacrifice, if he dies, you make a 4/4 Cinder Dragon. Like this guy just loves stuff like that. And then he also does a great job fueling your Marsh Dragons as well. So
I absolutely love Cinder Tota. I am so high on that card. Like don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bomb. I'm not gonna be like, hey, I'll get you back when you're behind, but that card is so good. It definitely is deceptively good. Like being an 0 for 4, you're kind of like, who's going to play this? But that card just always seems to do exactly what you want it to do.
Yeah, it stalls your opponents on the ground at the same time as if they don't have an answer to a flyer, they're terrified to attack into that. Because giving you a 4/4 flyer is dangerous if you don't have the tools to deal with it. And like I said, Nahid's Faithful does a really good job synergizing exceptionally well with that graveyard filling, sacrifice to gain extra effect deck and that archetype.
Okay, so let me ask you, once again, going back, top 8 at ECQ draft, Spiketail Kieran or Nahid's Faithful?
If I was in the draft of a top 8, I would want to pick a single faction card unless it was something like a severely high payoff. Like I know like the I think it's Artisan, the 2/3 Oni in Rakano. That is one of those really high impact cards. Like a 2/3, like we said, is a very good stat line, and a 2/3 for 2 is even higher. So that might be a card that would get me to deviate outside of the one faction pick. right now, looking at these 6 cards, Spiketail Kieran's pretty high on my radar as a pack one pick one. Obviously, we haven't seen everything yet, but that's currently my number 1.
All right. Well, I don't think our commons are going to do it. The last 2 commons we have is Storm of Feathers. It is a slow spell for 3 justice, and stun 2 enemy units. Then if you decimate it, you gain 4 armor.
Yeah, I like Storm of Feathers in an aggressive deck. Storm of Feathers does a great job helping you. Think of it as a slow flash freeze. With flash freeze, you can lock down 2 units for a couple of turns, allowing you to apply that last little bit of damage. And if you look at it in more of a curse style deck, when you want to kind of work your way up to that Kodash Seize All, this card can also do a great job kind of leveraging that a little bit. I don't think it's a proactive card, and I probably wouldn't be looking at it very much in a first pick.
What's actually funny about this card is I think it's one of the few cards that overperformed or performed better in the pre-release format, where we had it mixed in with the Dark Frontier cards, because in that format we had several Armor Matters cards as well as more relic weapons. So being able to stun 2 units and give your relic weapon some more armor actually became quite relevant, at least for me. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't think it became a bomb, but it was kind of funny how much more synergy you had there.
Yeah, in this current format, your weapons in Justice are borderline non-existent, to be honest. Like Mithril Mace is almost the only Justice weapon that you really play. The other one is the 6 cost 4/4 weapon that gives you a unit based on your spells, and the other is Mask, and both of those are uncommons in a very large curated card pool. So Armor Matters is a very difficult thing to make happen, and really it's difficult to leverage outside of just life gain.
Yep. All right, and then our last common is Icy Gaze. This is a fast spell for 1 and a primal, stun an enemy unit. Then if you have a primal influence, if Icy Gaze is discarded, play it from your void. So obviously one of the Feln Mill card type things. Don't really consider this a payoff, more like just kind of a pseudo insurance policy, or something like that. Like, hey, you're still gonna get some value out of half your deck. Where are you at on it?
I mean, people played the 1 cost Scout, the Scout stun spell, which is also in the format and curated packs. I think this card is very reasonable. I don't think it's amazing. I would say it's a very strong role player in just kind of delaying the game just a little bit. Or you can also use it in a situation where double blocks are obvious and needed. But normally, I wouldn't be picking this card very highly. It's something that you see towards the end of a pack, and you're like, I don't mind picking this up.
Okay. Yeah, so we're still on Spiketail Kieran then? Yeah,
Spiketail Kieran is definitely kind of like the number 1 pick right here, so, at least so far.
All right, going into our uncommons, we have Snowstorm Druid. This is the 1/1 Druid for 1 and a primal, has flying, and then summon. You gain Aegis, but there's more. Muster, stun an enemy unit. How do you feel about this one?
So this card usually makes it pretty late in packs. I've had a Snowstorm Druid in several Muster decks. Every time I have him in a large Muster payoff deck, I'm happy with it. But I never actively seek this card out. I don't think he's good enough to be picking over cards like Spiketail Kieran. This is kind of a card that you kind of falls into your lap and you're like, oh, I don't mind seeing this.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I don't think the Aegis is all. I mean, the Aegis is relevant because there is a curse matters deck in the format. So face Aegis isn't completely irrelevant in this format, but at the same time, it's not super important, I don't think. And then a 1/1 for 1 flying typically doesn't do much, but yeah, that stun effect could definitely pay off later on.
I actually think Face Aegis is more relevant in this format than any other format that I've really seen, in Limited at least, because there are so many curses that hit the enemy player. You have Mistrust, Blood of the Makar, you have the Unkindness, and then Kodash Seize All. Those are all extremely powerful curses in their own right. Having a 1 cost unit that gives you an Aegis, it can often be fairly reasonable. Again, it's not something that I'm going to value super highly in a pack 1 pick 1 situation, but again, I have no problem picking this card kind of in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
All even right. For just the Aegis effect.
Okay. And plus, I mean, once again, if you are trying to build the Muster deck, that means you're going to have some relic weapons or weapons to put on it. And then obviously the evasion helps out there.
Oh, definitely.
All right, next up we have a Calamity Oracle. This is a 1/3 Elf Shaman for 3 Shadow. When you play a curse, the enemy player discards the top 5 cards of their deck. So this is definitely one of the mill payoffs, and I've seen you kind of play it a little bit. Where are you at on it?
So if I see this card as a pack one, pick one, I see like a little signal going off in my head going, hey guys, you had that opportunity to draft that very real Curse Matters or mill deck. This is one of the cards you look for if you are going down that line, because milling 5 per curse is a very high number in a 45 card deck, because you're thinking about a top 8 of an event. People are not playing more than 45 cards. And 45, you think about 5, let's see, you're talking about like 9 hits with this guy and they're just done. And 9 hits is not the amount you need, because by the time he comes out in your opening hand, you're talking maybe like 6 or 7 hits is enough to just take somebody out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. See, and the one thing about me though is I typically don't go pack one, pick one mill cards, because you really have to be one of 2 people on the table that want mill. And if either person that's passing you a pack wants mill, then like you're really hard pressed to take it. I would be more inclined to dive personally. I'm more inclined, if I see a good mill card, pick 2, pick 3, then I'll probably dive stronger into it, because that means that, the people that are passing to me saw this, they had the option to go mill and they decided to pass on it. Versus we can take this and then let's say, pack 3, they see a malaise and they take it, or they see another Oracle and they take it. Well, now they're going to be valuing mill a lot higher too.
So another thing that you got to think about, let's say this is a top 8 of an ECQ event. We have good, fantastic drafters picking these cards. If we are doing a classic sitting down at a physical table passing packs, I would consider this very highly as a first pick, just because of the fact that if you're in an event like that, the stakes are reasonably high, and your mentality is going to be to pick the safe card. Kieran is a very safe card. Mm-hmm. Which means a lot of people are going to see cards like that, and they're going to kind of narrow in on those things and pick those cards, which means cards that kind of need a little bit of effort to go really high up on your radar become fantastic. They often kind of go underneath their view. So you can almost have just a phenomenal deck that requires a few hinge cards because people are going too safe and too cautious with their picks. So I think that Calamity Oracle in an event like this might actually hedge a little of Spike Tail Kieran for me.
Okay, yeah, that's an angle I didn't think about that. But when everyone's drafting really good, then if you go for the high variance, high risk, high reward, there's a chance you can get extremely paid off. Yeah, good point. Yes. Very good point, Gas. All right, our last one I think is actually a little bit better than I initially thought, at least in the limited format. I knew this card was good, but I've actually seen it do some work in limited. This is Dragon Forge. This is a fast spell for 3 and a fire, and it reads: draw a dragon or weapon of your choice from your deck and reduce its cost by 1. So of note, it does draw the card for you. It doesn't put it on the top of your deck. So that is something to consider. Sometimes we see things like this and it just simply puts it on the top of your deck. But this actually draws you the card, and it is a fast spell, so you could do it at the end of your opponent's turn. Where are you at on Dragon Forge?
Dragon Forge is not a card I'm going to pick very early, because there are a lot of times where it's not going to do enough or a lot. This card is extremely specific in what it needs. And we mentioned earlier that some of the weapons are kind of not the best in the Rakano deck. So paying 3 to grab a card is not always amazing. Some of the dragons can be reasonable, but once again, you need like 3 or more targets for this card to actually be played in your deck. Mm-hmm. So as a pack one, pick one, I don't really look towards that card as a high pick potential.
Now, let me ask you this. What if you have like a Carvet and you have like a bomb legendary dragon? Would you consider
taking... if I have a Carvet, I windmill slam this card.
Okay. All right, cool. Now,
What's better than 1 Carvet? 2 Carvet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Just wanted to throw that out there for our listeners. All right. And we do have a rare, which I have played against and haven't been too impressed with, but who knows? Let me see what your take on it is. We have a Blood Sun Staff. This is the +2/+2 weapon for 3 and Skycrag, so fire primal. It has quick draw, and then when the wielder attacks, your spells deal +1 damage this turn.
So I think that +2/+2 quick draw is already a pretty solid stat line on a weapon. Like, quick draw is great. Mm-hmm. being in uh, being in Skycrag on pack one, pick one, to me is very questionable. I have not seen or experienced a Skycrag deck perform extremely well. Most primal decks need to either be Huru or Felm or Combray in order for me to, not Combray, Alessian, in order for me to be like really happy with them. And then Fire usually performs best in Praxis, Stone Scar, and Rakano. So like almost every other archetype I have seen and had good performances with, I don't have enough experience to be picking cards like this at a high level event and be confident in my picks. So this may be just a lack of experience to shy away from this card, but I would be like I wouldn't touch this card in a high ECQ event just because of my lack of knowing what cards to look for and how to play it.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Like going back to the Nahid's Faithful, see that 2-color or 2-faction card is a little bit more appealing because of the fact that the factions it's in is a strong archetype versus Blood Sun being in Skycrag. Well, now you're kind of iffy about that faction, so it makes it a lot more of a risky play to take it that early. So I can see where you're going for that.
So again, I have this entire pack in front of me. I'm looking at these cards. I'm imagining me being in person at a physical event where I'm passing cards. Okay, this is my mentality as I look at these cards for picking for this ECQ event. I know this isn't a real thing because this is like the dream to have these real synchronous drafts. But if I were doing that, looking at these cards, I look at I would look at the colors, see what's available to me. I see that there's only 2 shadow cards in this pack. Yeah, Nahid's Faithful is kind of a shadow card. I see Spiketail Kieran as one of the few time cards in the pack. Dragonforge is the only fire card in the entire pack. Looking at all these things, the only card that even remotely resembles a mill card is Calamity Oracle. There is no curse support in this pack at all either. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a hesitation. I know that if something wheels around, it won't be beneficial to the deck that I'm looking at playing. So if I pass a Spiketail Kieran to my left, I know it's going to be picked. That person is going to want me to feed them more time cards. So if I continue to pass them time cards through the rest of this pack, I know that I'm going to get non-time cards on pack 2. So I'm looking at sending and receiving signals so that I can kind of craft my deck in a better way. So I like sending somebody a pretty clear signal that I want them to be in time on their second pick. Okay. Which is why I also like looking at Calamity Oracle as a pick, because this is like if I passed you a Spiketail Kieran on your second pick, you kind of look at me and go, all right, what are you doing? Yeah. So I like that. And I like putting somebody in a position to where I know what they're drafting. So if I see something, like if I see like a Grodov's Favored float my way, I go, maybe that's a little too good. I don't think I can let them have that one.
Yeah, and that's the good thing too about leaving stuff like the rare and taking uncommon, because when you look like what uncommons in time are going to beat out Spiketail Kieran, like it's pretty much just the Mandrake, and even there, and because of Grodov's Favorite, in most cases I would still take the Kieran there. So I mean, like you said, it's a pretty clear, concise signal. They'll see an uncommon missing, and they'll see another time card in the pack in the form of Vine Petal Creeper. So yeah, it would be pretty clear that you weren't on time on your first pick.
Yeah, so those are the things that I would say. If I was in a real life situation with synchronous drafting, I would pick Calamity Oracle and pass that Kieran to the player on my left. Now, if I was not in that situation, not synchronous, I was drafting like normal Eternal, I'd probably pick the Spiketail Kieran.
Okay, right on. Sweet. Well, thanks for that. You heard it here first. That is Kasendrith's hot take on Pack 1 Pick 1. But all right, that is going to do it. That is our Pack 1 Pick 1. Thank you so much, Kasendrith, for that insight. I hope you guys all got a little bit more insight as far as on how to better help your drafts and how you guys are making your picks. So let's dive into our main topic, which is getting to know you. So let's go ahead and start off with some real life stuff, like where are you from and what do you do for a living?
So I'm from Michigan. I'm from the United States, of course, Michigan. It's kind of like starting to get snowy out here. We have varying weather that changes about 4 times a day. But I really like it out here. Everything's pretty mild. I work in IT primarily, IT administration. So that's definitely where my focus is.
So it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because coming from Texas, like, we get all 4 seasons in the same week as well. So I totally understand where you're coming from, where you leave in the morning, it's freezing cold. By the afternoon, you're breaking a sweat. And then by the time you get home, it's like fall time. So I get you.
Yeah, the number one like phrase you hear on the weather forecast is lake effect. We are completely surrounded by large bodies of water that you can't see the other side of. The Great Lakes are amazing. When I think of, it's really strange when I hear people talking about going swimming, and I'm like, oh yeah, we go swimming in the lake all the time. And the thought comes to my head that you're swimming in salt water because you're like on the edge by the ocean. There's no salt water near me. I'm swimming in lakes that are all fresh water, and it's so confusing, and I can't separate that in my head, that people that live on like the coast, when they go swimming, they'll go to the ocean and like surf and stuff. So that's like an interesting thing.
So let me ask you, because I've swam in lakes before, but not any of the Great Lakes. Like, is there enough flow and current in the water to keep the all the muck and stuff down, or is the bottom pretty nasty?
Oh no, it's beautiful.
Oh, sweet.
It's the lakes are absolutely beautiful. At least most of them are. One of them is kind of questionable, but like, we'll go to the lake and you can, like, it's pretty clear. You can see to the bottom, like, as you're walking out in the water. It's pretty cold because the weather here, it doesn't usually get super hot. So it never gets hot enough to really make the lake like super warm. So sometimes you're like, the weather just never works out to where swimming is super nice for swimming in the lakes. But there are even occasions where you can see somebody actually surfing on the lake if the waves are really good.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, that is impressive.
It's pretty rare. Like, it's really rare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I figured it might be similar to like some kind of like motorboat sports versus like actual just natural wave.
Yeah,
but
sometimes you might see somebody do it, but it's very rare.
Okay, so while we're on the topic of swimming in the lake and stuff, what are your hobbies outside of gaming? Do you have any?
Outside of gaming, I do lots, like, I like to go rollerblading quite a bit. Me and my wife will go, there's a lot of trails in our area. I really enjoy that. To be honest, I have a lot of physical, like, board games. I like a lot of board games, deck builders. Most of my hobbies are revolved around cards.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's actually funny you mentioned rollerblading, because growing up in Miami, like, that's a big thing. Like, people go down to the beach or the parks and rollerblade quite a bit and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's pretty neat.
And then another minor hobby of mine is role playing games. For some reason, I have a small affinity towards them.
No kidding. I just don't have the time commitment for it. It's why I won't play WoW and like stuff like D&D. I absolutely love it. I think it's a ton of fun, but I just don't have the time commitment for that kind of stuff. So instead of making it awkward for other people and making excuses, I just try to avoid it. Not by choice, but it's just kind of out of kindness.
I've only done D&D like half of one time. It's something that I've always been slightly interested in, but I've never actually dove into D&D very much. Kind of a unique and interesting thing that you would think that it's something that I'd be all over, but I've never really done it.
So when you say role-playing games, what kind of games are you talking about?
Usually they're called JRPGs. They're very grindy and very difficult games of like turn-based combat.
Okay. Like Final Fantasy Tactics.
Like Final Fantasy Tactics, just a tiny one, but Dragon Quest. That's quite a good one. There's another one called Etrian Odyssey. That game is probably one of the most brutal RPGs you'll ever play.
Really?
It's exceptionally difficult. There is no hand-holding done in that game. If you jump into one of those games, if you've never played it before, you'll probably die in the first half hour.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think looking back, I think Final Fantasy Tactics was the first one I ever played of that, and I actually enjoyed those games quite a bit. I think they're a lot of fun, a huge time sink, but it is a lot of fun, a lot of strategy involved. You get to build up your team. So I know it's not exactly a turn-based game, but have you seen the new trailer for the latest Diablo?
Oh, of course. I'm actually a huge Diablo fan.
Oh, no kidding.
I've been playing. I have hundreds and hundreds of hours in Diablo 3. I still will play it once in a while. So I am definitely looking forward to playing Diablo 4 when it comes out.
So are you one of the people that you just, like, forgive me, I haven't played the game because the same thing. I know what addictive personality I have. So if I know a game's a time sink, I just don't play it. Like, I can't tell you how many people have been trying to get me back into WoW And I just tell them, I'm like, look, it's not that I don't want to, but I just don't have the time. So are you one of those people that do the seasonal characters where you build a new character every month, or do you have just that eternal, like, one amazing or three amazing characters that you have for like the length of the game?
I do seasonal characters, very much so. I don't really like push towards those like leaderboards and stuff like that. I just have a group of friends that we like to just kind of like hang out in the evenings and like play some games. I haven't really been playing a lot since I started streaming at the beginning of this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how much I actually play a Diablo 4 whenever it does come out in the future.
Yeah, streaming does take up some time. Like a couple of people have wanted me to stream more, and I'm just like, 3 days a week already kind of caps it off for me. I feel like sometimes I'm pushing it. So it definitely, you'd be surprised, especially when you start to pick up steam like you are, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Well, actually, shoot, we're right here. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and dive in. So we'll kind of segue into that the long way. We'll take the scenic route. So what was your first card game? Like, what got you into card games? Was it a deck builder? Was it a trading card game? Was it a collectible card game? What's up?
So my first card games were both, this is going to be like a long string of things. So we'll go through the card game life of Kasendrith here. It started off with kind of like Pokemon and Magic. Both of those were definitely like early on. Yu-Gi-Oh! And then it moved into Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if you heard that, but Mrs. Cass is like shouting in the background.
Yeah,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
I gave her a thumbs up.
So,
I dabbled into a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic was the starter for me, but I did dabble into a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! But go ahead, please continue.
Yeah, so I've played an unbelievably large amount of card games. I might be listing card games that you guys have never heard of as we work our way through this. So I've played card games like Kaijudo. I've played the Redemption Christian Bible-based card game. Where you rescue lost souls using profits.
That sounds pretty epic.
I have played Card Fight Vanguard. I played Buddy Fight. Those are some of the newer ones, of course. I played Card Fight a long time ago, back when Pale Moons were popular. So for those of you who are Card Fight fans. Yu-Gi-Oh! I played during the Crystal Beast, Gladiator Beast area. I definitely, I stopped around the time where Synchro Monsters were getting pretty popular. For those of you who are familiar with that, I stopped playing in the Teledat era. I had Teledat at the time. I really enjoyed that deck, and then they decided to ban half the decks. So I don't particularly agree with the way that they do their ban list as a kind of like a rotation. So I kind of segued away from that game. I have played the Dot Hack trading card game. So that one's a very entertaining one. It never picked up a lot of steam in America because it came out at just kind of like an inopportune time for other releases of card games.
Mm-hmm.
So I've also, let's see, I also have a very, very bad hobby that my wife really doesn't like. I like to collect dead and discontinued card games. So if there's a card game that no longer exists, like the Blue Dragon role-playing card game, which you may have never heard of, that card game doesn't exist anymore. And after it does no longer exist, I go and buy booster boxes of it and check it out and see what made, kind of look up the history of it and see what kind of killed the game. And then I'll build decks with it and I'll play some games with it and see what I think about it. So
that's actually super neat. I'm not even gonna lie. That sounds super neat to me.
So I played Redekai as a card game. It's the little like Redekai is a really, really strange one. So they're plastic cards and you can see through them. What you do is all your attacks, you place them on top of your opponent's characters and it blocks out different pieces of their stats. Like it may hit their center. They have 3 health bars. There's 1, 2, 3, and you may cover the top one saying you hit them. And once you've covered all three of their characters, you beat them. That game is super weird.
Yeah, it sounds like they were trying to invent like a new archetype, and it just ended up not working for like.
Well, you can imagine if all your cards are see-through, there's a lot of problems with shuffling your deck and drawing your cards and hiding your hand from your opponent. Like, there's just these things that just people didn't really consider.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, but that I just love seeing all these unique and interesting games. So my current games, though, I play Force of Will, which is a very anime-inspired card game that's similar to Commander from Magic the Gathering, where you have like a commander, but your lands are in a separate deck. So you don't have the mana screw problem of games like that not Force of Will, like Magic and Eternal can give you, the variance in your power. It's a game that I still play today, and I love it. The game is very entertaining. And I still play Magic, of course. Primarily, my Magic is drafting. I draft Cube. I draft a little bit. I play a little bit of Limited on Arena, but I'm not particularly a fan of Arena's draft system. But I still love Commander, and I'm really starting to enjoy Brawl as well. Sunnyvale it's his fault that I play Brawl.
Yeah, I once again, reality just kind of, I haven't been able to play Magic as much as I'd like to in real life. I used to play weekly and I just can't because of time constraints and stuff. And so I'm more or less exclusively, I play still some Commander casually, but I'd be hard pressed to get into Brawl because I'm like, great, more cards I'd have to buy to brew all these cool Commanders. So,
yeah, my Brawl is strictly on Arena. I play no physical Brawl.
Okay. Well,
but the thing, if there's very few card games that I have not heard of or have not at least played in my lifetime. So
let me ask you, because I actually dabbled into this one, and I kind of liked it. I didn't get to play that much, but have you ever tried Keyforge?
Definitely. I think Keyforge is a pretty fun game. Me and my wife went to a pre-release for that. I think the game is fun from a casual perspective. As just a time to go and play, and like everybody picks up a deck and you play a game. I don't see entertainment in a competitive environment for that because of the lack of creativity in construction. Like I love brewing and building decks, and that game kind of removes that aspect of the game.
Yeah,
that's why I wasn't super into that one.
Yeah, I could see that. Like it interested me that. Yes, I think you're right. I think the casual part is what makes it most appealing, because sometimes I like being able to like just pick up cards and play with my friends, even if they don't know what's going on, because we kind of all don't.
Yeah, exactly.
The gameplay aspect of it is very streamlined though, and I do like it. I think it's quite smooth. It takes a little bit to get used to when you're used to other card games, but like I said, I like it. I definitely wasn't one of those people who went out and bought like 40 decks, but I have about 6 or 7 decks sitting around the house to play if anyone ever wants to. So.
Yeah, I think I have maybe like 5 or 6 decks total. So, but like it was a great game. We played it when it first came out, and we haven't really touched it too much since then. But it's still fun.
Yeah, the only problem with me is because you don't build your decks. One of the first, I bought 3 right off the bat, and one of them was just bad. But because I didn't know how the game played, I thought I'm like, I don't know. Like my roommate played it, and they didn't do that well with it, and then I played it, and I didn't do that well with it. And I'm like, are we just playing this game wrong? So finally, we're like, okay, no, this deck is bad. Like this deck just doesn't work out. It was like some weird control like value deck, but not really. And then the other 2 decks we got were like aggressive, so they just didn't match up well. So yeah, nice, interesting. So what eventually led you into Eternal?
Like this is gonna sound like so cliche, but the drafting format of Eternal is probably the best digital drafting that exists today. Magic Arena is extremely flawed in its drafting. I am personally a limited person. I really enjoy it the most. I really dislike Arena style and Mythgard style, where you have like the row of cards and you randomly pick one, and then they give you another stack of random cards. Eternal really does a good job of giving you as close to a realistic draft experience as you can, without forcing you to sit down in like a pot of 8 and wait in queues and do like a real draft. Like Magic Online, you have like those pods where you sit down and you wait for it to fill and then you play. I don't like that waiting. You can just fire back to back to back. You can wait between even like a pick, and like that. This game gives me the most satisfying and most like competitively pleasing draft experience that I can have online today.
Got you.
So that's kind of what pulled me into it.
So drafting number 1 for sure, but how do you stand on things like sealed leagues and Forge?
So Forge is like the AI stuff. I think it's great. I think it's very entertaining, and I think Forge is fine. I don't like it when you pull it into a PvP perspective, but against AI, it's really fun. Constructed, I enjoy it, but I do not enjoy it enough to want to stream it very much. People will notice that when I like jump. I don't like to stick with a deck, and I like to like mess around with things. And I really don't like to have to like play a deck for a while and like grind. So I mess around all the time on Eternal. Like there are times where like every couple weeks I have to delete all my decks because they're full.
Yeah, so, yeah, I've been there before.
So yeah, I love constructed formats. People probably run into me all the time on the ladders. I don't enjoy streaming it as much, just because the lack of variation that happens in comparison to limited. And then another one, surprisingly enough, I think sealed is okay, but it's far from my favorite way to play. If you want to go in terms of variance, you're going to start at the lowest amount of variance with throne format. Throne is going to have the least amount of variance because of the largest card pool, and people can mitigate variance through what they do with their deck construction. Then you're going to get a little bit less variance. I'm sorry, a little more variance with expedition because the card pool is a little smaller, the power is a little shakier. You can have a little bit more variance there. Next up in line is going to be draft. Draft is going to have one of the highest variances in the game, but you can still mitigate it with your deck construction, and you can mitigate it also by what you pick, based on how you value your power. And then you go to the absolute highest level of variance, which is sealed. Sometimes you open your packs, you just don't get fixing, and you just need to play a 3-color deck with no fixing and hope it works.
Yeah.
Or worse
off, you open up like a huge bomb that just can win you the game, and you have zero support for that color.
Yes. So it's not that I dislike sealed. I think sealed's fun and enjoyable, but I don't want to play it a lot. That's why most of the time by the end of the month, I don't even finish all my games. I like to play it. I like to open packs. I like to brew with it, with what I have, like using limited resources to build things. But I still think that draft is kind of like the perfect balance of variance and kind of like rotating of your decks. So I think that one gives me the diversity and variance that I seek.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, no, I understand. I actually feel like a lot of limited people are kind of on that. They do enjoy sealed, but because of the fact that there's sometimes variance, just kind of, don't get me wrong, part of formulating the deck that you're supposed to with that pool is a lot of fun for a lot of people, and especially when the correct deck isn't your first pick. But just the fact that sometimes it doesn't come together quite well can be a little bit of a deterrent for most people. I do like forge sometimes. I forge myself. Obviously I do forge every season to get to masters, but every once in a while I feel like, hey, you know what, I just want to kind of go on autopilot, go through some picks, try out some decks, and I'll do some forge to just kind of decompress, because you always feel like you try a little bit harder and pay a little more attention when you're going up against real people. So
yeah, and another thing about both forge and gauntlet, you can take a long time between your turns. So if you do something that requires a lot of your attention, and you have some downtime in between, you can like take one turn every few minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which is really nice about this game. You can go off and do a format like that, which doesn't require a lot of attention, and it's great.
Yep. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, and you're batting 1,000 here for these segues, brother. I really appreciate that. So when in your Eternal career did you decide you wanted to start streaming? Were you streaming other games before? Was this something that was new to you? Was it like a joke, a dare? How did that work?
So it actually started as like a somewhat like New Year resolution / I really want to have a hobby that I enjoy. And this looks really entertaining to me. I loved watching streamers, and I saw the Eternal community as a place where I could potentially like really help and do like some beneficial things. I saw that sometimes like it was a little sparse. Sometimes like you'd see some streamers that were kind of like still working on getting like their setups done. And I'm like, you know what? I have both the method and the means to produce quality streams. And I have a certain skill set that allows me to draft and provide limited feedback. And I'm like, you know what? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump into drafting. I'll see if I can hit masters, and once I hit masters, I'll start streaming. So I started attempting to hit masters in December. My first real push, I hit masters within a week and a half on my first try, and then I immediately jumped into starting to stream it. This is not like something I like magically had the ability to draft. I've drafted many card games for 10, 20 years already. So and those like magic and experience in drafting really allowed me to transition very swiftly into this card game.
Okay, sweet. And was it one of those things where like did you go through any growing pains, or after like the first week of doing it, this was something you wanted to keep doing?
Yes. I experienced growing pains extremely quickly. So I have upgraded my lights, my webcam, my audio. I've upgraded literally every aspect of my streaming setup multiple times because of just seeing, like, I did my stream and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to work on this. And then I would go and improve it. And then I go back and I just see so many glaring problems with my stream. And I'm like, you know what? There are so many things I can do to improve this. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to see this anymore. So like, I just keep going through. And then Yada was somebody that I always hung out in his stream a lot. And I was a very active person in his chat and his community. And he was like encouraging me like, hey, you should keep going at it. And then he would like throw like raids of people that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. So like he was really somebody that really supported me in growing as a content creator and as a streamer. Yeah. So he forced me to, as you would say, get good really quickly.
Yeah, no joke. Definitely, because he's one of the top Eternal streamers, as far as I know. I know I'm late to the game. I showed up, I think I've only been streaming about 7 months, I think. So there were a lot of established people, including yourself, by the time I started streaming. But Yodabyte typically seems to be one of the #1 people that, you know, and great stream. I enjoy his stream as well. Him being Australian makes his hours a little interesting, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can understand. I could see the perfectionist in you, because your stream is of great quality. Like, I don't feel like you overdo anything that I've seen some other streamers do. And at the same time, there's still enough effort and thought and quality in your stream that it's pretty evident. So
yeah, I definitely believe like clean quality content. Like I believe that can go a very long way in any form of streaming. You see that I don't like clutter. I don't like tons and tons of advertising. I don't want to like blast a bunch of stuff in your face and be like, hey, you should do this. You should do this. That's not my means. That's not my end goal. My goal is just to enjoy streaming with the community. And if I can help people along the way, that is amazing. And I love doing that.
Yeah, you're absolutely, like I said, it shows, plain and simple. Like, that's the only way I could put it. You're one of my favorite people to watch. I watch you whenever I can. Sometimes it works out where I could be a little more active. Sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, it happens. I think that's all right. While we're talking about your stream and stuff, so obviously people typically start to develop some type of, you know, obviously community, but also kind of like a theme with their stream. And so you locked into oozes. So let's talk about that. So where'd that come from? Like, so I know, but really I want our listeners to hear it again.
So let's just be honest here. These slimes are adorable. Like that, like they're great. They stick right to you. So
pun intended.
But oh yeah, definitely. But anyways, I really love Dragon Quest, and these are, if you're not familiar, all of these slimes like you see behind me and around me are very recognizable, and they're all from the game Dragon Quest. So this is just the kind of like a professional subliminal thing from Kasendrith. So some secret tips here. These slimes being so recognizable, like everybody in the Eternal community, if you see a slime emote, you're like, yep, that's a Kasendrith emote. That is very intentional.
I mean, you have a way about you, and it works 100%. And you're not wrong. Like, in fact, one of the spoilers from Dark Frontier was an ooze, and your community made sure you were the one to spoil it, because they know that oozes is Kasendrith for sure.
Yeah, and I really do like I actually really do love these little guys. Like they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's awesome. And did you feel like, were you kind of taking a risk when you did it, or was that something that the community just as a whole kind of accepted and ran with it as well?
I don't know. I think I just like, I really embraced it. Cause like I said, it's not even something that I need to like pretend that I love, because I really do like these things. Like I collect them. My phone case is slimes. Like my life is just one gooey mess. So there's nothing wrong with it, and it's super natural for me to love them. So that it's just something that I embraced and kind of like created like emotes and everything for that. I liked having some of those themes to the channel, and people really like them. So
it's slightly side note, but it's kind of funny. But for some reason, the way you position yourself when you said a gooey mess, your lighting like started to glare you out. So it looks like you got oozed in the face.
Oh my gosh,
that's pretty funny. You guys are watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. I won't edit it out, but it's pretty good. It's pretty funny. Trust me, it happens to me too. I get pretty irritated because my lights are not even they're like an off-white, like a warmer color, and it still glares me out sometimes. I'm like, I don't know what else to do.
My lighting is ridiculous.
So one last thing on the oozes. So are those custom made, or did you can literally get all those oozes like public?
So I don't. Nothing behind me is custom. I only seek out official Square Enix slimes.
Huh.
I don't. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like all of these guys behind me, the only one that's custom is my phone case, and that's done by the same person that does the emotes on my channel. Sarah is like one of the most amazing artists in the world. And
Yeah, give her a shout
like,
out real quick if you want to plug her Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, I'll make sure we get that information so Jedi can do the plug for that in the notes. But I actually I bought a couple of shirts from one of her shops, not realizing who it was. And when I wanted emotes done for my channel, I actively sought this person out. I go, this is my dream, is to have this person do my emotes. Sarah never had done emotes for a Twitch channel ever before. And I'm just like, Sarah, you've never done this. I want you to do this. And I'm like, I hope you take commissions. And she's like, I don't. And it's like, have you ever done it? She's like, I haven't. And it's like, would you be willing to? And she's like, you know what? Let's try it. So, and she just knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah, absolutely amazing. All your emotes are absolutely spectacular. So kudos to her for putting that together and being willing to like try something new.
Yeah, even with her, the starting stream screen that I have, that is done by her as well. That was her first animated image she'd ever done.
Oh wow.
So I keep pushing her to do new things.
That's awesome. And then obviously like she appreciates the level of enthusiasm and content that you have, so that's why she's willing to make it happen.
Yeah, she's done art for other people in the community as well. She's done stuff for Noverb, and she's done all of Slades as well. Slades, he knows.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, I've been kind of pushing off her artistic talents onto other people in the streaming community that need that type of resource.
Yeah, I don't know. That's absolutely amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. I actually reached out to her at one point as well. I just caught her when she was on vacation, sadly. So, but yeah, that's great. All right, so I think that's gonna be good enough as far as our behind the scenes stuff. Really do appreciate it. Actually, you know what? Before I forget, let's go ahead and plug in your project with the Ooze News real quick, if you want to do that as preemptive.
So yeah, of course. I've only done one episode so far, and it's terrible, but you are welcome to check it out. It is an update on this past week's news with all of the ECQ events and kind of give you an idea of what it is. Again, this is going to be something where it's going to be like my first stream. I'm going to struggle, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to improve it. So anytime you guys could have feedback, I'd love it if you checked it out.
Sweet. Yeah, definitely check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes as well, so you can check that out as well. But all right, so diving into Eternal real quick for the last little bit. So obviously you're drafting the new set. How do you feel? How are you feeling overall as far as entertainment and skill value of this set of Flames of Xulta?
I love 99.99% of every single card in the set. I think it is so much fun. That this format is great. Almost every archetype is viable. I think this is just an unbelievably fun format.
So how do you feel, which is something I can appreciate, and maybe it's coming from my heavy MTG background, but I actually appreciated the fact that, at least in my experience of the game, like that unit types matter. Like they made cultists matter, they made Onis matter, and I like the fact that they didn't go ham on it. Like not every tribe is relevant, but there is some relevant tribes now where I feel like, at least for the time I was playing, I felt like it was kind of ignored because it wasn't a thing. But now like it does matter that something's, you're like, oh wait, that's a cultist. Oh wow, how do you feel about that?
So I really like the way that they balanced synergies and archetypes with creature types. When you draft Xenon, you don't just draft cultists. You draft Xenon with cultists as a support and kind of like a sub archetype within your Xenon deck. You don't have to have that. The same thing with Huru. Huru has some unseen support. It also has a little bit of other things here and there and like curse support, but you don't have to draft unseen. You kind of get like that, like the incidental support with those units. But it's not like such a forbearing thing to where there's a real cost to not drafting cultists in your Xenon deck, or you don't like have to find like this one really good cultist payoff in your Xenon deck for it to be good. So I think they did a great job balancing that, and I think it's great.
Do you have any opinions? It's pretty minute, but it's just something I noticed. Because of all the tribe type synergy, do you have any idea why they potentially decided to add griffins to the aerial archetypes versus just adding more owls?
So I don't know if it's a serious thing, but I think that it's fascinating that they added griffins as a creature type. I don't think it's very relevant because there's no real owl matter cards. So there's not really there's only like one griffin matter cards, and it's a legend. So it's not something you're really concerned about. I think that's just a creature type that's in there just to fill like lore or kind of like a Vorthos style thing, not necessarily gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I just, because that's why I was thinking. I was like, even with Kieran, I was like, okay, like I guess they wanted to have another thing outside of like dinosaurs, but they have beasts. So it was just weird because exactly what you said. I was like, there's not really an Owl Matters card. So to me, I was just like, well, you could have just made all these guys owls. And I don't think it would have like broken anything. Like there wouldn't be all of a sudden like the owl deck in ranked. But like you said, it might just be adding a little bit of flavor side without going ham on it because they just feel like owls isn't overly represented like Unseen are.
So if you think about it, like I'm not like a super lore expert on this game, to say the least, but Xulta is like a mirror of the original like area or world we're in. So it would make sense for us to, when we have owls in one land, we have something that could be like a mirror of owls in the other land. Like I said, I really do feel it's like a more of a lore pick than like a archetype or constructed matters.
Gotcha. Fair. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like I said, I'm sure everyone was super excited about finally having a bunch of dragons in the game anyway. So that's probably the biggest seller of the game. So let's go into a little bit. So obviously we know you're a good drafter. You are typically making top 10 drafts or masters all the time. You don't stay there because you just love the draft and you're not afraid to experiment, which is perfectly all right. So, sometimes your rank isn't indicative of your skill set, but you do like to explore. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the decks or archetypes, or maybe even just specific cards that you're having the most fun playing with?
So this morning, let's just talk about this one right now. Draconic Ire is shockingly good. There's a clip that maybe we'll post a link to it in the sub. But Draconic Ire in one draft this morning destroyed 3 Krodosh Seeds all.
Oh wow.
Destroying an addition and dealing damage equal to its cost to the enemy player is really, really fun.
And Kodash See All is a 7 power curse, so you're not only getting rid of one of their win cons, but you're dealing 7 to their face.
Yeah, so I was surprised and like a pleasantly surprised at how good that card performed. Overall, like I think some of the archetypes that I really enjoy, earlier we mentioned, I really enjoy the Sacrifice deck. If you can get Shadow, Fire, Time, with like Marsh Dragons and the Totemite, Nahid's Faithful, all those cards are really, really fun and they tie together really well. The other deck, which people have seen me play on stream once in a while, is the Mill Matters. Not necessarily a mill deck that aims to mill you out, but a mill deck that is fueled for the like Siphoner, the 1/2 Exalt for 2, and Roseblue Mandrakes. So you're not necessarily milling to win, but you're milling to power and fuel other cards. That is a really, really fun deck, and when it goes off, it feels so fantastic.
Yeah, that's one of the fun parts too about Limited, is that sometimes you just get excited. Like the other day on stream, I had like a really gummy, I think it was Xenon. I want to say it was a Xenon deck, but it wasn't very amazing, right? It was just kind of like, all right, we're going to ground you out and like eventually take the game. And we had the Umbran, the Exile Umbran, the 2/3 that mills them for 2. I always forget what that one's called. The Banished Umbran, I think is what it is. But
oh yes, the one that you pay 5 to mill cards, right?
Yes. And it just worked out where we weren't attacking them, they weren't attacking us, and we're like, okay, let's look at our deck. And the deck was probably like a 4 out of 10. Like I wasn't very impressed with it, and I was just like, all right, well, we know there's nothing in our deck that can get past this, so I guess we're on the mill plan. And we literally, like, I had all of chat cheering me on for like 12 turns as we literally just, our game plan was to not die and keep milling them. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, and we got there. Like we 100% got there, which I thought was a ton of fun. So sometimes you just kind of live up for that. There was another one where Kodash Sees All is a card I'm experimenting with, because initially I think it was just too slow being at 7. And
I love that card.
Yeah, I'm starting to come around on it. I think if you're able to stabilize the board, even just getting a 1/1 flyer every turn, I think what really makes that card good is the fact that you get the unit at the beginning of your opponent's turn. I think that is really what turns the corner to make it playable, because if you had to wait all the way to the beginning of your turn, I think it was just going to be too slow.
Oh, definitely. So this is a really fun one. This weekend, I had a 7-win list that had 3 Kodosh Seas all and 6 Misery Walkers. For those of you not familiar, Misery Walker is the Huru 2/3 for 3 that has flying and life steal if there's a curse on your opponent's, like if you played a curse on any of your opponent's stuff. That deck was extraordinarily fun. And I believe that one went either 7-1 or 7-2.
Nice.
But it was so silly.
What did you have to bridge the gap into the late game?
We had 6 Marshwalkers.
Okay.
But we had 2 Shame Bearers, and Shame Bearers were just really, really good at both slowing down an attacker and giving us a curse. And then we also had 1 more just Mark of Shame. So we had a lot of ways to kind of like turn on those Misery Walkers so that we could just there were many times where we just raced, where we just like, I have like 3 Misery Walkers, I'm just gonna gain 6 life a turn.
Fair enough. Yeah, the one of the funnest decks I've played was actually earlier in the format. I've tried to force it once or twice, and it's just never come together for me. But it was like a double Ruzin's Choice, 9 Berserk unit, and like 3 Prancing Griffin deck, where it was literally just get in as much damage early as we could, get them to like 14 or less life, and then at some point, draw strength or Prancing Griffin a Berserk unit, and then hit it with Ruzin's Choice for double damage, and just out of nowhere completely decimate my opponent.
We've had a couple of Oni decks like that in the past, but it's the Ruzin's Choice is a surprisingly powerful card.
Yeah, that card, and that's a good. It's interesting too, because the choice portion of it is actually, sometimes you see a choice where like one part you really want and the other one is like okay, but I feel like Ruzin's Choice is actually a really good balance of the two, where when you're able to close out the game, the double damage is just absolutely huge. And then, well, the downside to that is like, well, if you don't have a unit, then the double damage is pointless. But the other mode is to go look for a unit. So it's actually deceptively, and once again, it's a fast spell, so you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn and then immediately draw that card. Now,
definitely.
Now you are spending a card to tutor. You aren't, once again, that's the difference between it drawing the card and it putting it in the top of your deck. So you are still going down a card, but I feel like it does offer, like I said, once again, it's not one of those things where like, well, it's just a dead card in your hand. It's never a dead card in your hand.
Yeah, while it is technically card disadvantage, the card quality is very good.
Yeah, I mean, and it lets you trade up too, because I've done it a couple times where my unit quality on the board is suboptimal, but my opponent's swinging at me, and I'm able to give one of my units double damage and take out their big guy. Like, I'm still 2-for-1ing myself, but I am getting one of their huge threats off the board. So it has a little more flexibility than you would think. I've been pretty impressed with that choice. And then I obviously saw, I keep forgetting her name, the Elysian legendary. Sodi, thank you. I actually got blown out on stream by an Elysian deck that they didn't have Sodi, but they ran 2 green empaths, and they had 4 Sodi's choices. And they just kept sandbinding my units to trigger the spell, and oh my god, they just went off. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now?
Green Stretch Empath is the only Muster Matters card you need to make a good muster deck. You'll hear that here. That is the one card that will pull me into muster faster than any other card.
Yep.
That and Pock Slingshot.
I felt so bad one time. This was off stream, but I ended up picking, and I got greedy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just told myself we're doing it. And in the first 8 picks of the draft, I had 4 green empaths.
that might be a little too much. I think 2 is like the magical number, but
well,
being a 5 cost, it's really difficult sometimes to survive that long.
Well, needless to say, it ended up not working out because I was only able to get 1 spellcraft weapon that entire draft. So So sure enough, I ended up cutting 2 of them. I ran only 2 of them, and then balanced out my curve. I ended up not being a muster deck and just being like an Elysian kind of try to be value deck. It didn't work out that well. But I was even
if you accidentally trigger muster, it's still worth having him.
Oh yeah, like 2 cards. Typically, you're either gonna even out or get a card beat up a card. So
exactly.
Okay, and are there any? What are any some of the? So you mentioned Koda, Kodash Seasall and stuff. Are there any other kind of niche cards and stuff that you've been really having a good time drafting?
I'm probably gonna get yelled at if I don't say it by Orlin, but Fervent Siphoner. That card, like I said earlier, it's really, really fun. And some of the turns where you go like turn 2 Fervent Siphoner into the 3-cost Cultist that both players mill 3, that allows you to attack for 7 on turn 3.
Yeah, and then if they block it, you just put it on the cultist. Yeah,
they never block it. You don't block that card when you buff it. But I think that card is extremely fun. I valued it pretty lowly, and then I immediately retracted every statement I had when I picked it, and it just destroys people.
I'm gonna have to check it out because I do pick that card. I don't pick it low, but I don't think I'm able to I don't synergize enough with it. So I definitely will have to check that out for sure. Let me think. And then, yeah, I think that's all the kind of other than, all right. So what do you think, just to get the nuts and bolts out of the way to close off this portion of the show, what do you think is the most top 2 most effective decks / archetypes in this format that you've generated the most wins with?
Probably if you want to like generate the highest win ratio, you're probably going to go Combre. You're probably going to go Rakano. And you're probably going to go Xenon. Those are like the 3 really big ones. Stonescar is also up there too. But those are like Combre. Anything that involves justice and time as one of its colors, I still feel those are probably some of the strongest things. Because you have like Grodov's Favor, you have Kirin, you have the one card that I'm unhappy with this entire format, Draw Strength. There are just so many high power and extremely swingy cards that you're gonna have a really difficult time drafting like a bad deck if you stick to something like that.
Okay, and one last thing, what do you think about the design of Fel Ritual? The
Fel Ritual?
Yeah, the 4-cost kill a unit and then it puts a life-stealing dragon into your void.
I absolutely love that card. I love the way that it works, the way that it functions. I love the way that some of the cards in the format synergize with it, namely like Immortalize or something like that. I think the card's really cool.
Yeah, I like it too. I just think as far as I'm aware, I think it's the first time that Direwolf has tried to do something like this, and I like it a lot. Like I think it's a good introductory tool for beginner players to start bridging the gap into like intermediate and advanced play, because when they look at it, they're like, why does this even say this? And then once they realize, oh wait, if I could bring it back from my void, I'm kind of getting a free card.
Yeah, so there's the expedition deck that I played in the ECQ qualifier this weekend actually plays the ritual to its full effect. It's really, really fun, and I had a lot of fun with the deck, but it uses every single mode on that Fel Ritual all day.
Sweet. Awesome. And we're actually going to talk about that deck here in a moment. But yeah, I think that's going to close off this portion of the show. Thank you so much, Kasendrith, for opening up your heart and mind to the people. Like I said, I know you're a personal favorite of mine. I really do appreciate you always being so supportive of the community. You're absolutely amazing about that. And it's a big deal. Is there anything else you want to add as far as just before we end this part, as far as supporting the community and why you do so much for it?
I would say that the reason I do so much for this community is because I really love this game. I love this game. I want to share my feelings about the game with the community. I want to support this community, and I want it to grow. And I think that me doing the things that I do is a great way for you guys to both enjoy the game and enjoy the community as a whole. And you guys have always been the community's been so supportive of me that I just want to be able to kind of give back to the guys and girls that support me. So that's really where I stand on this.
Right on. Sweet. Yeah. And let's just throw it out there, because you and I are both on this boat, even though it's kind of looked down upon. So we both spend money on the game, and and we both are on the same mindset. We're like, you know what? I enjoy this game, and obviously Direwolf needs to make money. If we want to see this game grow, they have to make money off of it. So we don't mind spending money. Now, if you don't spend money, it's perfectly all right. But yeah, that's kind of where you and I are at, where I don't mind spending some money to be happy and with a product I really enjoy.
I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with people that spend money on the game, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with people that don't spend money on the game. I think both of those people are very valued members of this community. So, like, in complete transparency, I probably I would say probably like around $50 a month that I spend, and that is, I would say that is a very high amount of money to spend on this game.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you don't need to. It's absolutely unnecessary due to Direwolf's very generous card acquiring system.
Yeah, I think it's very. I was surprised with how easily I was able to build up my collection. Granted, we are limited players, so drafting helps us quite a bit. But
drafting is the most expensive way to play this game.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it. But we always have every card we need for constructed, so it works out pretty well.
It's so true.
All right, sweet. So that's going to wrap up that part, which leads us into our What's the Play, where I'm going to break down a game state. And normally I talk through it. I try to pick stuff that has multiple decision trees. And today I actually got a decent one from a cube today. Today, like I said, we ended up drafting the set 1. So this is still a pretty accurate limited format. So I'm going to break it down for you. I went ahead and sent you the picture via Discord if you want to take a look at it. Sadly, I took the screenshot in the middle of action, but I'll break it down for you and our listeners. And you can tell me what some of we actually had quite a bit of discussion on chat about this one. So I think it's a lot of fun. So let me go ahead and break this down. Once again, this is cube draft of set 1. So this is an extinct draft format of Direwolf as of right now until they bring back like things like phantom drafts. But all right, so our opponent is at 24. We are at 12 life. They are Xenon with 13 out of 13 and a power, and we are Elysian, so Time Primal, with 12 out of 16. Or actually, we're 16 out of 16. I'm sorry, because I caught this picture in the middle. Okay, the board state, if you guys could bear with me, all right, I'm gonna kind of cut it a little bit shorter just because it's gonna be a lot of words. But our opponent has a vanilla 2/3 for all intents and purposes. They have a 3/7 flyer. They have a Pillar of Amar, which is the 5/5. For 7, and then in power, so play a sigil, it makes a 5/5 sentinel. They have the Dark Wisp, which is the 1/1. When it dies, draw a card. And then they have the Xenon Guardian, I believe is the name, which is the 3/3 with endurance, and then you could pump it to an 8/8 as an ultimate, which it is an 8/8 now. And then a Cutthroat, which is a 2/2 lifesteal. So once again, 2/3, 3/7 flying, 5/5 make a 5/5, 1/1 draw a card, 8/8 endurance, and then a 2/2 lifesteal. Our side of the board is Scaly Gruon, a 1/4 vanilla, a Pillar of Amar, but it was pumped to a 6/6. So it's a 6/6 that when in power you can make a dude. It's 5/5. We have the Sapphire Dragon, which is the 6/4 Overwhelm flyer. And then we have 2 5/5 Sentinels, just vanilla 5/5s, and then a 5/5 Dinosaur with Overwhelm. Okay, our opponent has 2 cards in hand. We have 4 cards in hand in the form of Stormlinks, the 2/3 with Ambush, another Pillar of Amar, the 5/5 that makes 5/5s, Predator's Instinct, which is the slow spell that for 1 time that gives a unit killer, and then a Scorpion Wasp, which is the 1/1 flying deadly ambush unit. So it is our turn. What's the play here?
So I look at this and I see that the board is extremely stalled. I see no easy or correct way to win on the ground. So with that in mind, with 2 Pillar of Amars on my side of the field and my opponent with 1 Pillar of Amar, my personal idea is we have a 6/4 flyer. We need this card to get in the air and attack 4 times to win the game. So my play would be to play Scorpion Wasp, follow up with Predator's Instinct. When I play Predator's Instinct, I will watch for a fast spell. If I see no unconditional fast spell, I will kill her into the 3/7 and start attacking with my 6/4 in the air to apply a 4-turn clock.
Okay.
That is the play that I would go on. If I do see a fast spell when I play the Scorpion Wasp, I think that really does make things a little questionable, but I still think that the play is to follow through and attack into the 3/7. If they have a fast removal spell, they're going to use it on that Wasp to stop the Wasp from killing. And we're still going to be at a board stall, but we're going to be able to go wider than them because we're going to have 2 Pillar of Amars.
Yeah, and see, and that was my... So I did see this play out, so I'm going to tell you what ended up happening. But so for me, since we have 2 Pillar of Amars, that means every time we make a power, we're going to end up making 2 5/5s, which honestly, there's a good chance that we could just keep crashing into our opponent and overwhelm them. We are at 12 versus them being at 24, so that is a consideration. And I do understand, I do agree that the ground is gummed up. But considering that, like, I really have a hard time of like spending a wasp and a killer spell, it's like a 2-for-1 almost right off the bat. At minimum, it's a 2-for-1, and then we have a potential of getting blown out. So I think for me, I might consider putting killer on one of our 5/5s to try to take out their Pillar of Amar to stop that engine, or swinging with the dragon, see if they block, and if they block, there's only going to be 1 damage left on the 3/7, and then once again I can killer maybe the 5/5 dinosaur with overwhelm to get in the rest of the damage. So we're kind of maximizing our threat, or maximizing our plays with damage, and still mitigating the fact that we can 2-for-1 ourselves with the wasp and the predator's instinct. Because if they have a trick for the dinosaur, then whatever. Or the sentinel, let's say we just put it on the 5/5 vanilla sentinel, like we're just losing a card that was essentially, we're losing a card because the sentinel was free off of the empower.
I really like the setup you have with that play. We could attack in with our 6/4 Sapphire Drake. That will also check for a fast spell and see if they have something. The only problem that can line up is if they have a way to kill our 6/4. Because then both the air and the ground are going to be locked up, and we're going to be in a lot more trouble.
Fair.
So I want to at least point out that there are problems with both of our plays. My play involves a little bit more of a card disadvantage, and your play is putting your 6/4 Sapphire Drake, which is probably going to be our primary win condition right now, at risk. So both of them are both definitely things you can do.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting too, because that's the reason why I put out the faction colors, because us being on Elysian means that we don't have any hard removal other than killer and deadly effects, versus our opponent being on Xenon means that they have access to things like Annihilate and Death Strike. So there's a clock somewhere in there. I agree. I think it's a very interesting board state, and that's why we had such a discussion of it, because there was so much going on here, and there's different methods of attack that, you could very easily just swing with the 2 5/5s or 3 5/5s and see how they block, and then make a play after that, because obviously you have another pillar in your hand. So I think we actually came up with like 2 other lines on top of that, if I remember correctly. But so once again, this is hindsight. So what ended up happening is our player ended up taking your first line, your initial line of playing the wasp pre-combat, and then following up with the predator's instinct, and swinging to take out the flyer. Because you're right, at the end of the day, the ground is gummed up, so we want to try to win this in the air. And a 6/4 beater is no joke.
Yeah, it's a 4-turn clock at 24 health. They have a 2/2 lifesteal unit, so that it probably makes it 5 turns overall. Because they could just swing it in to gain life and mitigate, and delay 1 turn. But even 5 turns, it's good enough.
Yeah. So they will end up, and I'm pretty sure this is the way it worked, but they played the wasp, then they played the predator's instinct, and there was no pause. So they went ahead and did exactly that, try to take out the flyer. And then it turns out that the opponent had a scorpion wasp of their own, and they just traded wasps. So I thought, and that's fair, but in your defense, like, you wouldn't have seen it. Like, I'm almost positive, because you can't ambush a predator's instinct, like, you wouldn't have seen the pause anyways. So it just ended up being like the one niche card that worked out in that spot.
So in that situation, attacking with the Sapphire Drake first would have actually put that Drake at risk, and then it would have opened up the air for them. If you think about that. But we also didn't need to play our wasp either, and we could have potentially used it to kill their 3/7, and that would have put us kind of at parity, where we're just both going to sit there on the ground and wait for another threat to come in.
Yeah, and like I said, once again, I do err on the side of caution nowadays, because I used to be a very aggressive player, and more often than not, it just ended up leading to like 1 card blowing me out. So I typically try to always get a max value of my cards now. And the fact that Wasp is a kill spell on its own, and we have so many beefy units, and granted, once again, we don't know what's in our player's deck. We don't know if that's all the biggest units they have for Predator's Instinct. We don't know if they have another Wasp. So and it's the best way to close out the game, because it does to a point. It gets to a point where like you want to mitigate how many cards, or limit how many cards your opponent is drawing. And every turn that you delay the game gives them another chance to draw a card that gets them out of this situation. So I can understand being a little more aggressive, risking some card advantage to potentially close out the game. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Kasendrith. Really appreciate the insight there. You've had a really good knack for navigating board states. I've seen sometimes that is sometimes you just navigate a board state before it even gets that complex. We're like, you know what? We're going to stop this from happening. I'm going to give all 3 of my 2/2s flying, and we're going to get in there and put our opponent on the defensive. So I remember watching that stream. I forgot the name of the card now, but the 2/2, the aviator or whatnot, that when you get armor, they all get flying, and you had like 4 of them.
Yeah, that deck was unbelievably fun.
All right.
I do remember which one that one was, though.
Yeah, it was absolutely fun. All right, so that leads us to our last section of this show, which is going to be our constructed corner. And we have, of course, you being the guest, I wanted to give you first dibs on this, Kasendrith. And you just recently mentioned earlier that you played in the Expedition event, and you decided to play Mono Shadow in that event, correct?
Correct, I did.
So let me go ahead and load up the deck on screen for those watching on YouTube, and then I'll let you go ahead and break down the deck for our listeners so they can kind of just get a little bit, because I like to appeal to all players. Once I found out, thanks to the Misplay doing their survey, that there's actually not a lot of content out there for people to consume anymore, at least on the audio aspect of things. So I decided to dabble into a little bit of Construct at the end of my shows to kind of appeal to everybody. So definitely, if you don't mind, break down the deck that you end up playing this weekend.
Yeah, of course. So it's I call it Shadow Midrange. It's a fairly straightforward deck to an extent, but it has some really, really powerful synergies that you can kind of leverage to grind out just about any opponent if you can make it to the late game. So we start off our early game. We have 4 Bloodseekers. That's the 2/3 that deals the damage to you at the end of each turn. And if any player has 10 or more cards in their library, it gets +2/+2. So that can be fairly sizable. Often games can be won with Bloodseeker, and one of our most important 2-drops is Tavia, the legendary elf. Tavia is a 2/2 quick draw. Whenever you empower, it gives all your elves +1 attack. You pay 5 and discard a card to play 2 2/1 elves. So you can often carry a lot of weight in the early game just with those cards against like some more of the controlling decks. And you can also even out aggro some people if you go turn 1 Bloodseeker into turn 2 Tavia. So it's fairly aggressive in that sense. Mm-hmm. You also have Fenris Nightshade, which is a 3/2 for 2. It's an unseen that you can pay 3, deal 3 damage to you, and draw a card. It also does 1 damage to each cursed enemy, but we don't care about that deck. We're using it for a way to generate card advantage. The way that this deck works is since you're playing Mono Shadow, you do a lot of 1-for-1s. So any card that can replace itself or generate card advantage, you're going to want those cards. And Fenris is a fantastic source of that. One card that is one of the guys that kind of like leans you into Shadow, and I was unbelievably surprised at how powerful this card is Impending Doom. Good old flashback to the old cards. Impending Doom is the double Shadow, 5/5 for 4. That flies and deals 1 damage to you at the end of each of your turns. If you notice, we do a lot of damage to ourselves with this deck.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, wow.
So you would think like, how does this deck beat aggro decks? But we'll get to that in just a moment. So Impending Doom blocks just about everything in the format until like turn like 7. This guy is just a monster. So and then we follow it up with Incarnus. I think this Incarnus this is one of the better listeners. It's the Shadow listener for Triple Shadow. It's a 3/3 unblockable that invokes a Shadow card. I will say right now, the amount of times I have invoked an Incarnus during the the qualifier event, I think it was probably more than 10. It's surprising how many times you make an Incarnus out of an Incarnus.
Oh, wow.
So you just generate card advantage, and it's not difficult to get the second evoke off of Incarnus in this deck. And then we're going to follow up with a unit that kind of like helps us kind of recruit some of that loss from the early game, and that's Carvet. So I call Carvet kind of like the little, oh my gosh, what is the Shadow Reanimator payoff? Azendel. This is like baby Azendel in this deck, and we'll get into this in just a minute why. So when Carvet comes into play, he makes a 1/1 cultist. So this is one of the only cards that makes a Shadow unit on entry. And why does it need to be a Shadow unit? Well, that's because we play 3 Vara Fate Touched in our deck. So if you ever make it to turn 8, you probably win the game. Because what you're going to do is let's say you have 1 Carvet in your discard pile. You're going to play a Vara. You're going to reanimate a Carvet. Carvet's going to make a Shadow token, which allows you to reanimate like an Incarnus or an Impending Doom, or maybe even a Tavia. And then suddenly you're just going to completely reload your board with a single card.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds incredible.
So there was one game where I went Vara into Carvet, into Vara, into Carvet, into Tavia Fenris. And they're like, I concede. I was at like 6 health, but I didn't care anymore because I completely stonewalled their deck. They had nothing left they could do. They couldn't attack into our units. We just had so much pressure and so much lifesteal on our side of the board.
And
so that kind of rounds up the units.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go into the single recon tower. That was the most asked question when I posted this deck list to my Discord. Why are you playing one recon tower? And the answer is, I love having it in my hand, and I absolutely hate having more than one in my hand. The way that this deck looks is you have 4 6-drops and 3 8-drops and 2 7-drops. You really want to make sure you can play all those cards. So anytime you see that recon tower, you're extremely happy. It's going to make sure that in the late card, in the control decks and in the mid-range games, you can hit that power. And it's not difficult for you to kind of gum up the ground to where you can kind of like slowly work your way towards it using like maybe like a removal spell into a recon tower activation, or like play a Bloodseeker plus recon tower activation. It allows you to make full use of your power every turn. So I really, really like that. Getting multiple cards with a single card is kind of just what this deck likes to do. So we have, and then another thing that helps us out is Dizos Office. We play 2 Dizos Office in this deck. It suddenly makes it so that Bloodseeker, Fenris, Nightshade, and Impending Doom, they don't hurt anymore for some reason. So it's pretty nice to have that card in your deck. It can immediately turn the game around like instantaneously against a lot of like mid-range decks. Mm-hmm. So you never really want too many of them. At one point I had it at 3 and I kind of shaved it down to 1, and that's where the recon tower came in, and I was really happy with that. So now we're going to round up the spells, where every single one of these spells is a removal spell for effectively. We play 2 Spiteful Strikes because sometimes the amount of lifesteal you can get off of an Impending Doom with lifesteal is it kind of like immediately changes the shape of the game. That's why we play 2 Spiteful Strikes. We play Vara's Favor with 4 of them. Once again, we really want to make sure we're hitting power. Every single turn we want to hit power. There's a lot of like dangerous X1 units in the format. You want to be able to kind of pick them off if you need to. This is one of the reasons you play Mono Shadow, and that's Devouring Shadow. This card kind of beats on cultists. It beats on anything with Exalt. It completely eliminates the creature, and you never need to worry about it coming back. It completely eats a Carvet. They're not going to get that Carvet back. It's gone. So this card is just, it overperformed the entire day for me. I absolutely love this card in the deck.
Nice.
So remember how we play 3 Varas in this?
Yes.
Well, when you play Fel Ritual, you now have a reanimation. You have now suddenly a 5/5 flying lifesteal and Nihil Draconis in play after you play your Vara, which is really powerful. So this deck has nothing short of targets for Vara to reanimate, and you want to continue to have targets for Vara to reanimate. And Fel Ritual does a fantastic job giving us more things to bring back when you play your Vara. Yeah, so that's why we love Fel Ritual in this deck. And then we're going to go down. This seems kind of contradictory, but we play 4 Maledictions as well. So Malediction kills our Bloodseekers sometimes. It kills our Fenris Nightshade all the time, and it kills our Tavias. It also kills our Incarnaces. But Malediction is so powerful in the matchups that it's good that we don't really want to not play it. And then Impending Doom being a 4-cost 5/5, you can play an Impending Doom to slow down their board, and then they try and go around it with wide creatures, and then you just Malediction everything away and get them for 2. It's happened many times. So I think Malediction is probably like one of the namesake cards of Expedition. They're just like, if they're an aggressive deck, they're like, can I beat Malediction? And they're like, no? All right, well, I need to find a way to beat Malediction.
So just from a deck construction point of view, was Immortalize a consideration at all, considering Fel Ritual and Vara and Carvet?
Yeah, Immortalize was in the deck originally. It was actually in place of the Spiteful.
Yeah,
but
that's always good.
The problem with Immortalize is it's really good when you decimate it. And this deck really wants to get to 7 and 8 power. So decimating gets extremely painful in this deck because we have so many things we want to do with our late game power.
Okay.
So I ended up cutting the 2 Immortalize, and I went to Spiteful Strikes because it's more important for us to get to 8 than it is to buy back a Neil Draconis and play it out on, let's say, like turn 5.
Okay. All right. One other consideration, real quick. The power base is 27 power. You have 19 Shadow Sigil, 4 Emblem of Makar, and 4 Seal of Devotion. So how is the interaction between Seal of Devotion and Incarnus? I mean, obviously Vara, by that point, you should hopefully have triple power or triple shadow, but how is it with Incarnus being triple influence and only a 4-cost unit?
So if you think about the way that power works in this game, it is absolutely impossible for this deck to get to 8 power without having the Shadow Influence for Vara. So that part's not too much of an issue. Incarnus, very rarely is it an issue, but the benefit of having power with Warp, once again, it's card advantage. And this deck loves leveraging tiny bits of card advantage to where it can slowly get through there. So the Seal of Devotions were never really much of an issue.
Okay.
The only issue that Seal of Devotion has is I play games on mobile a lot. And when you have your game on mobile and you see your opening hand, you cover the top of your deck. So you really got to play slowly and be careful you don't play power and then the Warp card shows up. So that's the most difficult thing about Seal of Devotion.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times, or even had a Seal Devotion off of like a Heart of the Vault or something like that. I click past too quickly, and then I'm like, wait, what's that animation? Oh no.
Yep. Yeah. So you just got to have the mindset of I need to play my cards, wait like 2 seconds, and analyze the situation. It's a good habit you can get into rather than just quick snapping out your cards, especially in a deck like this because Seal of Devotion exists.
Yep. All right, sweet. That's very interesting. I might end up jamming a couple of games of this and see how it plays. I'm super interested. I'm really enjoying the Expedition format. Right now, I've stuck to my Onis, and I've just continued to tweak the Onis deck here and there. Sometimes I have like close to 75% win rate. Sometimes it's closer to 55, just depending on who's playing that day and stuff. But yeah, I like Expedition. I think it's a win from Direwolf. So kudos to them for making that happen. But,
and then also, I should probably update you guys. This deck, I played all 3 of my sets. I went 5-2, 5-2, and 6-1 with this deck, so it performed fairly reasonable.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, sweet. Well, and then of course, obviously, you have great play skill, so you're quite the strategist. So I'm sure that helps quite a bit as well. But yeah, that's awesome. So that's the Constructed Corner for this week, guys. So definitely check it out if you're interested in Kasendrith's Mono Shadow Expedition deck. Check him out at his Discord, where he'll have the deck list posted there, which leads us into the closing statements of our show, which is the plugs. So Kasendrith, where can people reach you at and find you?
You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on my Twitch page. On my Twitch page, underneath in all of my banners, all of the information and all of my social medias and every connection that I have is all easily accessible through there, including access to my Discord, access to, like I said, access to Twitter, access to a bunch of different resources. It's a fantastic place to check it out. It also has my stream schedule for you guys. And you can check that out just as it is with my name with Kasendrith.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you. That is awesome. For me, I'm Jedi. You can catch me every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, live at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. Of course, you can once again follow me on Twitter or YouTube at EJthePodcast or Eternal Journey on there. Definitely follow so you guys can take a look. If you can't catch me live, you can see most of my content there on the YouTube. And then, of course, follow me on Twitter. Lets you know when I go live, when I post new videos, when I do new podcasts and things like that. Tune in every Sunday for our Cube Draft casual event. So as of right now, it is casual. You guys are more than welcome to tune in and watch. And of course, if you're interested in talking to me 24 hours, you can catch it on the Discord. The link is at my Twitch below. And of course, if you're interested in following my real life stuff, as far as fire performing, circus stuff, cosplay, all that other good stuff, fitness, you can check me out at CaesarLeBear7 on Instagram. But all right, Kasendrith, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on the show and kind of give us some insight both in the draft format and yourself. It's been an absolute delight. So thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, I had a fantastic time, and I love doing stuff like this with other members of the community. So I'm always up for doing things like this with you.
Awesome. Give my apologies to Miss Kasendrith for taking away from her time. Really do appreciate it yet again. All right, that's going to do it. So if you have any more alibis or shout outs before we call it a show?
I should be all right.
All right, sweet. All right, guys, that's going to do it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Of course, as usual, definitely support all the other content creators of this great game of Eternal of ours. Once again, your voices are heard by Direwolf. They do pay attention, even if they are slow moving. Sometimes it just depends on how much they have on their plate, but it is all encouraged. Plus, it helps us as content creators to continue to make this great content for you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you got a little bit better at drafting and limited play today. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.